On today's show, the Memphis Grizzlies lose their big man in the middle, Steven Adams, out for the entire NBA season. How much does this loss hurt the Grizzlies' title chances? Will Memphis make moves to fix up their front court a little bit? And are we in store for an all-star season from Desmond Bane? It's all coming up right here at Locked On NBA.
You are Locked On NBA, your daily NBA podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up and welcome to another edition of Locked On NBA, the biggest stories with the local experts. I'm your host, Jackson Gatlin, also host of Locked On Rockets right here on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Now, today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Look, you shouldn't have to worry when you're buying tickets to your next big event. We've all been there. You're on a clunky ticketing app and you can't even tell what kind of seats you're getting, or this is my least favorite. You punch in all your information, you go to hit submit, and then for some reason it all erases and you have to redo it all. You don't have to deal with any of that fuss anymore with Game Time. Game Time is the fast and easy way to buy tickets for all the sports, music, comedy, and theater events happening near you. Game Time is the only ticketing app that gives you complete peace of mind with your purchase. You can see the view from your seat before you buy, so you know exactly what to expect when you arrive. They've got all-in prices, and the total is up front, so you know exactly what price you're paying. You know you're getting a great deal without those hidden fees that pop up later on. You can buy tickets in seconds with just 2 taps. It is that simple. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms do apply. Again, create an account, redeem code LOCKEDONNBA. That's LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Joining us now is the host of Locked On Grizzlies, Damichael Cole, who you can track down wherever you listen to your podcasts and on YouTube. Just search Locked On Grizzlies. Now, Damichael, it's been a day for Grizzlies fans here. Some really unfortunate news. Steven Adams out for the entire year. Going to require right knee surgery for that knee that he's been dealing with since this past January. I guess originally, they elected to go the non-surgical route with some rehabilitation. Doesn't seem that really cut it, unfortunately. We saw him in a couple preseason games, but now he's going to be gone for the entire year. How big a loss is this for the Grizzlies to not have Steven Adams now moving forward?
It's huge. When you talk about ripple effect, like just total impact on player 1 through 12 on the roster, or 1 through 15, his impact on the Grizzlies matches up arguably with anyone on the entire team. And to some people that don't watch the Grizzlies very closely, that might come as a surprise. But if you're a Thunder fan, you know what I mean. And if you were a Pelicans fan, for the time he was there, you know what I mean. Steven Adams, when it terms of rebounding, screen assists, he is elite, arguably the best at each of those categories, especially offensive rebounding and things like that. But the way he creates extra possessions for a team that, granted, over the last 2 years hasn't been the most efficient offense. Like having that guy when your half-court offense breaks down to just give you another opportunity, take the ball off the glass, give you another opportunity. That's been so big for the Grizzlies. The screen setting, everyone was looking forward to seeing. We saw the rapport that he and Desmond Bane have together. This was going to be the first time we were going to see him on the floor with Luke Kennard and potentially Desmond Bane at the same time. 2 shooters, the NBA's best screen assist man to date. So it's just a huge ripple effect. I can go down every one on the roster and say why this affects their standing. And another one that it really stands out with is Jaren Jackson Jr. We all know the national talk with Jaren Jackson Jr. There's 2 things that really stand out, right? There's the foul trouble, and then there's the rebounding. People like to pile on him for those 2 things. Well, guess what? What one player helps out with both of those categories simply by himself? It's Steven Adams. It's because take this last preseason game for the Bucks against, for example, Jaren fouled out in the third quarter against Giannis Antetokounmpo. Now, granted, it's a preseason game, so Grizzlies didn't really care to take him out, but he fouled out. He had 6 fouls, pretty quickly. If Steven Adams plays in that preseason game, more than likely what the Grizzlies would have done is say, hey, we'll put Steven Adams on Giannis. We'll put Jaren on Brook Lopez and kind of keep Jaren, off the ball a little bit more, which allows him to kind of help help and, protect the rim and be that guy who kind of just comes from the weak side, just flies around the floor. And that's how he got so many blocks last season. Sure, he did get a lot of blocks when he was man-to-man against guys, but a lot of them came when he just was in help defense. So Steven Adams helps him out drastically in that area. Of course, he covers up Jaren's mistakes with the rebounding as well. He's just a huge loss, man. This is one that the Grizzlies are going to feel.
And they still don't have Brandon Clark with no timetable yet on the Achilles recovery for him. So that's a lot of money to have locked up at your 5 spot and just not playing basketball. Roughly about $25 million, I think, between those two guys for your 5 spot. How much does this even alter the Grizzlies' rotation now, Damichael? Because you're missing Ja for the first 25 games. You're missing now Steven Adams, no Brandon Clark. Like, what does this do to the Grizzlies' rotation here, at least in the beginning part of the season?
Well, luckily for them, they've been here. We just saw it last season in the case where Xavier Tillman started 29 games for the Grizzlies. We talked about Steven Adams and Brandon Clark. By March of last season, both of those players were completely removed from the rotation. And it was mainly Jaren Jackson Jr., Santi Aldama, and Xavier Tillman. Jaren's best month of the NBA season last year was March. He averaged over 20 points per game, and that's when we saw his role kind of increase. No Brandon Clark after he tore his Achilles in early March. No Steven Adams since late January, but he really got after it in March, Jaren, that is. And in April, he averaged over 30 points per game in a very small sample size in regular season games. Playoffs, he was a little bit up and down, but they've been here. We know the guys that are pretty much going to get the minutes. It also creates an opportunity for, one of the NBA fan favorites out there, Kenneth Lofton Jr. A lot of the NBA fans love him. Now he's a guy.
Some Kenny Lofton. Let's go.
Man, a lot of people love him, man. A lot of people love him. But now he's a guy who can potentially factor into that backup center spot behind Xavier Tillman. So now he gets a real rotation shot. Santi and Jaren pretty much are your power forward guys locked in. Now we're going to see more of those guys at the 5, Jaren at the 5 a little bit more with Santi on the floor alongside of them, those type of lineups. So the Grizzlies will mix and match more, but at the end of the day, it's not anything we've seen before. All these guys are returning players on the team, so they've been here before.
Can the Grizzlies, though, afford, Damichael, to just let Steven Adams sit out this year, right? Let him rehab, obviously no timetable yet for Brandon Clark, or do they need to be proactive in potentially trying to find a move for, either one, if not both of those guys to actually bring in a contributor, whether it's a contributor at that 5 spot, or maybe it's just a contributor, right? Basically a different way to allocate that $25 million, because that's a lot of money to have you just sitting on your payroll without actually turning into, meaningful basketball on the floor.
Man, that's a lot of money, and it's for a team that wants to contend right now. You bring in these vets like Derrick Rose, Marcus Smart. They're not coming over here just to be satisfied with being a 5 or 6 seed or a play-in type team. They want to come over here and experience what the Grizzlies experienced the last couple of years and being a top 2 seed in the Western Conference, and then add on, to that playoff level experience. So I get the feeling that there's more to come. I think the Grizzlies are in a unique situation. Everyone knows that Ja Morant is suspended right now. He's suspended 25 games. And because of that 25-game suspension, there are some potential loopholes. So one loophole that the Grizzlies could potentially explore is the fact that after the first 5 games of Ja Morant's suspension, the Grizzlies have the option of moving him to the exempt list in the NBA. And if he's moved to the exempt list, that creates a roster spot, basically a 16th roster spot for the Memphis Grizzlies. The Grizzlies have 15 guaranteed contracts right now. If you look up and down the roster, a lot of those guys, you really don't see the Grizzlies releasing. So that 16th spot is crucial for a team like this, where they don't have just a unanimous guy that could just, they could just cut loose and fill that 15th spot with. But a lot of people say, hey, now you use that exempt list extra spot, and you'll get 20 games to get a look at some free agent center out there potentially. And based on how that 20 games go, then you reevaluate after that point. Because when Ja comes back, then, of course, he'll regain his roster spot, and you'll likely have to let that player go or make another corresponding move. But the fact that you get that 20-game sample size to say, hey, let's see how this works. Let's see if this player, brings something we don't have, or it's like, Xavier Tillman is better than that. We'll be fine. But basically, they have that option. That's one I think they could potentially explore. But then there's a couple other ones. You know, Jackson, you're very familiar with the traded player exception that they picked up in the Dylan Brooks signing trade. That's another one. It's about $7.5 million. They could potentially look to dangle that in a trade and pick up a big that way. So they have options. They have the ability to be creative with what they do. And at the end of the day, if they have championship aspirations and this lineup isn't cutting it, Memphis has options on the table where they can go out and make something happen.
The other storyline I'm so intrigued by going into the season with Ja missing time, now no Steven Adams, I feel like we're kind of poised for Desmond Bane to take yet another leap in his career. I think this could be, especially again, this first chunk of the season, right? This is basically going to be Desmond Bane's team out there.
Man, Jackson, I hesitate a little bit because I've watched this guy, last couple seasons and just seen the gradual improvement in his game. But watching Desmond Bane play, it's that he has that smoothness to his game, like a Klay Thompson, when he's at his peak efficiency, like a Devin Booker when he's just snaking through the defense and getting to wherever he wants to get on the floor. Like this year in particular, like in the preseason, everything's come so easy to him. And when I say that, you can tell Desmond Bane is saying, hey, I want to shoot right there, and I'm about to get to that spot. In the past, he was scoring 20 points, but he was only scoring based on the only shots that he could get because he was limited in being able to get certain shots. Now he's going off the dribble. He's playmaking. He's a secondary creator in the offense. They're running off-ball screens for him and getting him open off the ball. Like, it's going to be tough. Like, the first 25 games, defenses will know that, hey, we got to lock in on Desmond Bane, but it won't be that simple. Think Steph Curry, right? And not in terms of, the player, but I'm talking about the way that he's been moving off the ball. He's been on the ball. What makes Steph Curry so tough to guard, along with his, supernatural ability to shoot the basketball, is the fact that you can say, hey, I got Steph Curry tonight, but you're going to be running from three-point line to three-point line. He's going to play on the ball. Next possession, he's going to be off the ball. And when he's off the ball, he's going to be running all over the place. They're going to set down screens for him. He's going to do back cuts. That's kind of how the Grizzlies have used Desmond Bane in the preseason. He's pretty much getting looks from each and every type of, play in the book for the Grizzlies. And I think he's in for a big year. West guards are deep, but Desmond Bane he's knocking that door down. He's knocking on that door for sure. Knocking
on the door of a potential All-Star appearance, you mean?
Yeah. I mean, he's right in that conversation. Look,
okay.
Last season before the toe injury, he was at about 25, 5-5. That's kind of where he was in the preseason as well, and he didn't play in the fourth quarter in any games. We'll see, without Ja on the floor, I think his efficiency will be fine. And he's going to have every opportunity to at least be in the conversation. I think, West guards are too deep. But if, you know how it usually works out pretty much every year, an injury here, an injury there, whatever the case may be, he could be one of those top guys, to factor into that conversation as one of the reserve spots in the West.
How will the Grizzlies ultimately navigate this season now that they know they don't have Steven Adams for the entire year? Is a trade on the way to help kind of, supplement that front court action? And could we see Desmond Bane become an all-star for the Grizzlies this season? You'll have us covered for all that and more over at Locked On Grizzlies. Damichael, thanks for stopping by Locked On NBA with me.
Appreciate you, Jackson. Appreciate you having me, man.